So welcome to today's episode, which is episode 9 of Broken Roads. And it's a very special guest today. It's my wife, Aneta. I'm really, really pleased that she's finally agreed to come and join us. I believe her story is so remarkable, inspiring. She's obviously a very beautiful and very important person to me. And she is the founder of Apoka, which is a Polish domestic abuse service set up in the UK. It's been around now. I think it's in its 13th year, just begun its 13th year. It's an award-winning service, and again, has its own amazing story and a great team led by my wife and some very, very committed volunteers, trustees, and patrons. But before we get into that, we're going to get into today's episode. And so, Aneta, tell me, who is Aneta?
That's a very good question. Aneta is a mother, a wife, and grandmother, and I would say a rebel in a good sense, a person who always fights for justice of others, supporting vulnerable people, and trying to advocate for those who struggle to find a voice.
Okay, so obviously the audience or those listening who don't know you don't know that you were born and you grew up in Poland. You're now a joint citizen of Poland and the UK. You're a British citizen and a Polish citizen. And whilst you grew up during the very, very kind of formative years of your life, it was still under communist control. Can you tell me what that was like?
Yeah, that was really, really strange time for a young child like myself to trying to integrate in the life of full of different events that was taking place then. My earliest memory of the time in communist Poland is back when I was just under 10 years of age, and I remember when in my family home, together with my grandparents and my parents, we in the evening we was listening to this radio, a special edition podcast. It wasn't podcast then, but there was information flowing from America through radio called Free Europe, and that was forbidden in Poland then. I remember I was listening to the radio, and there was all this stuff, political stuff about President Kennedy, and then later Reagan, and obviously America was supporting Poland through the communist regime, and this, I would say, conspiracy in Poland. People, Polish family, they were trying to regain the freedom through network channels that been hardly acceptable by the communist regime, by the Russia. And as a little child growing in a family home, when from the very early stage, my bedtime stories was experience of the Second World War, of the Nazi occupation. Horrendous story I heard from my grandparents about the Auschwitz concentration camps, and then listening to what is going on in Poland, the people getting arrested. There was not freedom of speech, all the letters that we sent between families or friends being censored. Every letter was checked, scanned, and if there was something there that wasn't according to the communist regime, people was arrested and some of them they lost their lives. So for me, growing up in a communist Poland was like being still in the war, in the resistance. I don't want to talk much about politics, but in my colleagues, my cousin, myself, we have not much chance to feel the freedom and express ourselves. And I don't know, being happy as far as I remember at the early age, we was always surrounded by this trauma and fear of, that was one of this.
Have you got any examples of what would happen to people if they tried to openly call the regime art?
Yeah. So basically, as you know, Poland is a very Catholic country, always been, even through the partition, when for 123 years, Poland didn't insist on a map of Europe. The Polish language was forbidden, the same as historic events. History was forbidden. So Polish nation was always working, obviously underground, to pass the history, the Polish language to the generation, to the children, grandchildren, and so on. So as an example, in the 1980s, I remember there was a communist regime, and many times people I know from my family, from my neighborhood, even my dad was arrested and going through the interrogation of KGB itself, like in a movie of I forgot the name. Understand again? What's the special agent James Bond?
Mhm.
Yeah, so it sounds like this is all from a James Bond movie, but that was the reality then. So people who is caught, for example, talking or sending messages through so-called Telegram, there was no mobile phone, not much telecommunication. So people used to say Telegram in coded words about some event happening or something happened, such a thing. So when the KGB special agent picked up on this message, they will go back to the person who sent the telegram by the person who was receiving, and there was interrogation happened. So there was interviewing, there was them torturing them. Some people, like I said, some people lost their life. That was really dangerous time to live. And I will talk later about how through the times our resistance developed. And myself, I was more a child, 10, 11 years old. I was already bringing I would say, the strength within family to rebel against what was forced on us since the Second World War ended in 1945. Don't forget, the communist regime was run until 1989. So for mostly 44 years, we were still under communist regime. So the freedom, so-called freedom, never been there because we ended being occupied by Nazis and we become a slave to communist Russia. So for example, in school, when I was attending school, there was not allowed to put crosses on the walls. We was not allowed to pray. We was not allowed to talk about our history. Our history book in the primary and secondary school was about Lenin, Stalin, all the big personas from Russia. And there was big heroes for the Polish country, because as far as they was concerned, to save Poland. So by providing support to Poland and this continuous regime, the Russian government was kind of support that they thought Poland would survive without this support. Yeah, and I remember when I was 12, I decided to put the cross back on a wall in my school class. And soon after, the principal of my primary school, she called it wasn't the police, it was called ZOMO, ZOMO. That was like special forces, different from the police, but that was working with KGB and the communist I was saying diplomats from Russia. So as soon as this happened, the principal, she called the ZOMO arrived, the whole issue around the cross on the wall, and they basically called my dad and asked, can you take the cross down from the wall? And my dad said, I won't, she put it there, so I won't take it down. So because I was underage, they never arrested me, but they arrested my dad. So we put the cross on the wall.
Mhm.
That's how that it was.
So, was it also true that some of the Poles were living a double life, whilst most people lived in abject poverty, literally living on the breadlines, sharing very kind of minimal rations, having not a lot of access to quite a lot of everyday luxuries that a lot of us take for granted in the West today, that some Poles actually were recruited into the Russian intelligentsia in order to basically snitch on their neighbors, and that those guys were coveted with, nice watches, clothes, nice homes, money, clothes from America, for example, TVs, cars, and so it was really a double state, a double standard, and that they were recruited in order to basically be spies for the Russian regime.
Yeah, unfortunately this happened, and I came from a very small village in the eastern border of Poland, and in our village was maybe 500 households, but still amongst this small number of houses, there was people who was basically serving Russian government, the KGB agents. So what they did, they like you said, there was double standard of life. By signing up to the Communist Party, they had special membership. They had access to medical teams, the best one, at their schools. They got like a kind of bonuses. They could buy the nice furniture, cars, and the houses and flats. So they was having access to, we called them, that was called P-Regs, that was special shops where you can buy everything, all goods, by having dollars, use by dollars, receiving dollars, and you can buy everything what you couldn't get in any shop in Poland. But people who stick to the values, like being so devoted to the country, the culture, unfortunately they suffer the most because families was relying basically on their reserves, on what they got, what they grew on the farm, veg, fruits, conserving, everything in the jars, that special skills before anyone thought about fridges and freezers. So I remember there was food rations. So we would have like equivalent for 1 month, for example, 2 kilograms of sugar and 4 kilograms of meat, bread, butter, and even cleaning material was rationed by the family. So it was real struggle, but in a small community, people was living very close and they were supporting each other. So if one person had more, for example, potato, and another one had more product, meat product from the farm, they were sharing, they was like swapping, helping each other. So that was really, really hard time, really hard time. I remember it's really, really actually funny story when it was end of summer. So I was going to go to school on the 1st of September, and then even clothes and shoes was on this ration cards. So me and my grandma, we went to Solidarność to buy shoes from me to the school. There was only 1 pen left, and both shoes was having different sizes. And I remember my grandma said to this lady in the shop, "What do you want me to do? How she meant to wear these shoes when it's like one is number 3 and another one is number 5, size 5?" And the lady said, "That is what I've got."
And obviously you grew up on your mum and dad's farm. It was quite common in the part of the Poland where you lived for generations to live together in extended freeholds, at least. Well, there weren't so much freeholds, but these lands were kind of farmed and used to grow crops and produce. And did the communist regime require you to hand over a lot of what you produced, or did you get to keep and trade all of that?
So everything was on contract. So during the time preparation for the start of the spring, all farmers from my region, they were going to the local not council, was like community where all this all contract was given to all the farmers, and that was kind of like lottery again. People who was having this membership, there was the investment contract and big contract. For example, 5 hectares of potatoes or wheat or sweet corn or whatever. And obviously others who didn't belong to this prestige group, they were getting small amount of contract. And when the crops was growing through in the summer and when it was harvested, so obviously everything needs to be given to the land of the council, who has also the signing the contract. And obviously if you deliver the contract, the produce, there is a price for everyone. With the excess of the produce, you keep for yourself, or you can sell anywhere else. But that was strictly by contract. You couldn't produce much more because you will be able to sell. If you sell to other people, you might pay penalty. Because there will be question how you manage to produce so much, how it's possible where you get this. That's a stupid question. It's almost like I don't know how my parents, how my community, how they managed to stay insane, to be honest.
Now, today, if we kind of fast forward a little bit to today, there's certain movements among kind of younger generations who have a fantasy about communism being the alternative to democracy, the alternative to capitalism. And certainly democracies and capitalism has its shortcomings. It's a human system and it's bound to. But what would you say to these people who perhaps feel that communist offers an equality of existence to each participant who exists in any particular culture or society? What would you say to them about people who may never have really experienced what it's like to live under a communist regime?
Mm. I guess actually acknowledge how difficult it is to live your life when you're not allowed to be free, to do what you like to do, to say what you like to say. I guess today's generation will have to go back to the history books, but I mean those books that are not contaminated with false information. They will have to experience this on their own, in their own lives. But what I will give to them as the legacy of this, to stick to our values, to the values that perhaps been passed through their own families and their homes. You never know how it's like to lose the freedom and feel comfortable about talking about what you really want to say and experience. I mean, growing as a child of the generation that survived Second World War, it's like I guess I've got different approach to what our children have right now, because thanks God they didn't have to experience that. But it's like the memory, the trauma of, not my trauma, but I inherited trauma of my grandparents and my parents. And it's like going through my life with me. And this is why I'm maybe more sensitive, more like vigilant to everything. And I see danger everywhere. I don't know, I have no idea. I don't know if I manage to answer your question. It's quite
No,
broad.
I think you have answered the question, and I guess the kind of the couple of things that is that imagine what it's like to live having to be paranoid and having to look over your shoulders and have eyes in the back of your head and to think about everything that you say and to be worried of the consequences and to not know who you can trust and to really have the freedoms that you have today. The fact that you may live in countries that allow you to take to the streets, to social media, to pubs and clubs or wherever and express your views that may be counter to any kind of cultural narrative that you have a view against, all of that would be suppressed. In fact, it would be punished and perhaps punished in the most severe way. And until you have these freedoms removed, until that actually happens, you don't understand how free you actually are. So most people today, I guess the message you're saying is really, if you think you have it bad, think again, because things could get way worse, perhaps much worse than you could even dare to imagine. I think that's what your point was. Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem. can you remember a fun time? So in amongst this, one of the things I remember about very terrible times of my life is also punctured with really funny times. There were moments of that that I suppose I would say shouldn't exist, but did. So, have you got any kind of warm memories or anything that you kind of think of, despite everything that was going on, that you remember as being funny or warm or tender?
Oh yeah, I don't know how everybody gonna take this, but I think it's worth sharing. So I mentioned already, I was always rebel. So I was 4 years old when my brother was born, and obviously is it was my disappointment because I wasn't the number one anymore. And later on, I remember when my parents was working in the field. That was like summer holiday, and my granddad was looking after me and my brother. So I was 6. My brother was 2 years old. But I must be really bored. So what I did, I found white paint. It was like a more emotion, time loss emotion. And I painted my 2 years old brother from the top to bottom in this white emotion thing. And
Mm.
today I'm thinking, where's my granddad? Like, obviously he must fell asleep because he was like 70 odd years old. So when I painted my brother, he started crying. Obviously, it must be feeling very itchy or uncomfortable. I'm crying, then I panicked. So I started to fight for some solution what to do, how to take the older pain. So what there didn't work, any cloth I was trying to rub, it didn't work. And then I remember my mum when she was decorating some part of the house to wash all the brushes or hands. She will use this kind of solution and smell like benzo. And yeah, so I started to put this solution on my brother that was even making worse. So yeah, and it didn't end up very well for me. Thanks God, he
No.
was okay. He is okay. But that was
Yeah.
I think that was the highlights of my childhood.
Right. No, I remember this story, and it is funny, and we've all laughed about it, including your brother. And I can attest to the fact that he did survive. He's gotten over that, and he doesn't have an aversion to paint. Actually, he's a builder, and so
And
he did. Yeah,
and he said he don't remember that, so thanks God. But
yeah. Okay. Well, funny, but also scary, right? Um, So I remember in my home, growing up as a young person, and every now and again, Paul in Solidarność, uh, Let Luenska. I can't.
I love
Excuse
Valencia.
me if Valencia. So, yeah, apologies to anybody who's Polish. My pronunciation's very bad. I'm bad at saying anything Polish. Add a Scottish Glaswegian accent into that, and yeah, it's a bit of a disaster. So I'm sorry for making a dog's dinner of that. But I remember the bread lines. I remember Maggie Thatcher. I remember Ronald Reagan. So do you remember Solidarność? Do you remember the fall of the Berlin Wall?
Yes, fortunately, and I'm glad that I do remember because I can pass this to my children and grandchildren. So I remember Margaret Thatcher. She was a very big persona in Poland. Poland adored Margaret Thatcher, so Ronald Reagan, and then was big supporters of democracy in Poland, like Wałęsa. When the movement started in shipyard in Gdańsk in 1980, my uncle who lived then in Gdańsk, he used to work in a shipyard. not in the same department, were Lech Wałęsa, but all of them was working class people and families who tried to stand up to the regime. And I remember many times when my uncle, my auntie was visiting us, there was always really this press printing leaflets. I remember the smell of the ink was really, really rough. And then there was basically bring the leaflet sometimes to the eastern border of Poland about Solidarność, about the movement, about the group of independent workers who basically set up numbers of how do you call it, requests to the Polish government to basically take into consideration, because they wanted to change something for better for the families, for the children and the grandchildren. And you might know from the history book or some documentary programs what happened in Poland between 1972 and 1980, when workers in a shipyard was shot to death and was prosecuted. There was movement as well in a Catholic church, and our cardinal, Colin Mackell, later become Pope John Paul II. He was, I would say, he was our strength. In saying our, he was for the people who was fighting for the freedom, who wanted to regain the freedom, and he was massive supporter. Not in a way, but he was asking people to fight against each other. But he used to have beautiful words, and he tried to connect people to have a dialogue, to talk about how this can be resolved. He never been in a side of violence or any kind of disturbances, but obviously in Poland, in a country divided into two, I would say, two groups, KGB, ZOMO, and Polish government under Russia regime. There was basically it was fulfilling the Russia orders. So when any uprising, any meetings held in factories, in a shipyard was in place, the government was asked to send soldiers, ZOMO, tanks on the streets, basically get people at first, but the resistance, Polish workers, was that strong. They wasn't afraid of tanks. They wasn't afraid of the soldiers and machine guns, and yeah, many of them lost life in that so-called free Poland.
Mm. And I think the most powerful thing about John Paul II and the whole Solidarność movement was that he was a supporter, and his weapon was truth. He just spoke the truth. He just spoke to people's lack of freedom. He spoke to the right for the inviolable dignity of each person. And he himself was kind of marched before the regime many times and threatened and coerced, and they tried to basically, close him down and close down anything that he said. And the same with the movement. So Solidarność, this upswell, this movement, and this resistance that was the price that was paid with so many people's blood, was something that was unstoppable. Once it seemed to start, there seemed to be no stopping it. And I don't know, I certainly don't know today if people understand the price that people have paid for freedom. And so, can you tell me from your memory of those times and maybe what you've learned since, what was life immediately like after this? Because certainly in the West, I think we might have had a very kind of naive view of things, thinking that there was an immediate restoration to prosperity and immediate restoration to kind of a sense of normal kind of Polish culture. Can you tell me what it was really like from your perspective?
Yeah, so in May 1989, there was end of communist regime when Lech Wałęsa became the leader of Solidarność, and there was first election held, democratic election, and basically the formation of new government and conversation about Poland's round table, and basically new, I would say, new era for Poland. It wasn't that easy. People might think end of regime, of communist regime, might be the golden age for Poland from 1989, but it wasn't. It was really difficult time, and a lot of changes on the political level, and democracy, that was open trades between countries. Lots of people, especially young people, was able to basically travel abroad. A lot of them immigrated to America, UK, looking for new opportunities, because at the moment when communist regime stopped existing in Poland, the need was to bring new influence, new I would say new models into Poland existence. People was suppressed for so long, for such a long time. Don't forget, in the Second World War, we was under Nazi occupation for almost 6 years, and then another 44 years under communist regime. So the suppression was in blood for so many generations. Polish families was suppressed, and there was like I guess there was feeling like they get off the roller coaster and they didn't know where they were, where to go. So yeah, all this influence coming from the West, from America, from London, played a big part in the Polish culture, I would say, modern life restoration. And yeah, first time in, like I said, 50 years, we was able to talk about culture, about language, about history. There was the time when lots of Polish artists involved. There was lots of poets, songwriters, rock groups. There was basically there was using their skills, their talent to express the free Poland, in Poland.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really appreciate how deep and rich the history of Poland is, and I think it's certainly I suppose a defect on the British people, or at least the British educational system, to not teach more about Eastern Europe, and especially the Slavic states and Poland, because it was so richly intertwined. And again, Poland has been in the crosshires of many conflicts throughout the years, through centuries of conflict, and yet emerged free. Something about Poland, where we are on our own kind of religious and spiritual pilgrimage here in Krakow. We're having this podcast today, and and Krakow's a very different place from the Krakow that I came to almost a few decades ago, and I can see how Poland has really changed, and it has a real Parisian feel. Krakow is a real beautiful place, but it's also, as you know, we've travelled to Auschwitz, Birkenau, a lot of other camps. We've travelled around, to some of the bigger cities, and there's a deep sadness and a deep sense of the indelible effect that has been played throughout many decades, many centuries on the Polish people, and a culture that is, so full of so many great people, and certainly certain countries have done everything they can to try to destroy the very best of the intelligentsia and of those who are incredible artists. It's an incredible history, an incredible country. So you remember the Berlin Wall coming down. You remember that actually it was an aftershock. People were in shock. They didn't really know what to do. The country was on its knees in many ways, but it had begun to win its freedom, and it would take some time. So how long was it before, it began to regain a solid sense of itself and assert its kind of desire to be within the EU? How long was it before the fall of the Berlin Wall until Poland joined the EU?
Exactly 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
15 years, yeah. It seems like I don't want to say that I got like black hole in my memory about this time between 1989 and 2004. Those 15 years wasn't the best years for me. So my focus was on something else, on different survival.
Sure.
But yeah,
Sure.
it certainly open new possibilities and opportunities for Polish people when we joined the European Union in 2004.
Yeah, for sure. And I can remember visiting, I think, Poland for the first time in around 2006. It was Krakow was the first place I came to visit. I remember being told to prepare for really cold weather, and so I wrapped up. And when I landed, it was a kind of about 21 degrees, and so I had to take the layers off. But I enjoyed my time then, and I could just sense then the just the potential, and I knew that great things were going to happen in Poland, and indeed they have, and they continue to do so, despite all of the challenges that are going on politically, culturally at the moment. So, in this time that you were talking between the fall of the Berlin Wall and the joining of the EU, this other battle, if you like, I take it you're talking about your first marriage. So tell me about that. Just tell me if you can, as much as you feel able to, about the violence and the isolation and the sense of hopelessness that you were also experiencing whilst all these other things were going on around you.
I'm just thinking if we continue to this question, because I want to talk about this, but I want to maybe first talk about my spiritual life as a young teenager, young woman before even I enter into the marriage.
So let's talk about JP2 then. So John Paul II, obviously Saint John Paul, was a substantial influence on you and on many people in Poland. And you are highly active in religious pilgrimages, excuse me. So tell me more about this. Tell me more about your spiritual
Mm.
life and the influence that had in your life.
Yeah. So I love to talk about this because it's given me such a warm feeling, and to be part of these times when Colin Mackell became the Pope, and John the Second. His his incredible journey and his incredible influence on young people, on young generation during the martial law in Poland, and through his episcopate when he served as the Pope was amazing. And like I said, he influenced young people. He brought together young people, young generation. He knew how to talk to us to get out the best of us, our energy and our enthusiasm, and we can carry on his legacy. I was only 16 when he visited the part of Poland when I was studying in Krakow. And I remember we was walking from the about 60 kilometers on our feet during the night just to reach the place of meeting on the second in a massive field. I don't know, maybe 100 hectares. So 4 o'clock, in the morning we arrived, we set up, all tired, basically soaking wet because raining. But we was happy with our rucksack and some raincoat, some giant sandwiches. There was not McDonald's or stuff like that on the way. So whatever you brought with yourself, a bottle of water, that what you would have for breakfast. And then remember, people started gathering. It was many thousands. I can't remember how many thousands of people was there, and mainly young people. And then likely I was in the first row of the sector when we was having our group from the school, from the college, and John from the second arrived, and he was passing through the alleys in his mobile car, and he was always spreading his arms to welcome young people, and as he was driving, he was touching all of the hands, and that will stay with me forever. So I was blessed enough to experience that. And then after that, I was really considering to devote my life to something else. I was in college to study art design for a crystal glass. And I was this kind of a student that I would always lost myself in book, in reading, in writing. I love writing, and with all my colleagues, there was experienced teenage life. There was having dates with boyfriends and going to this stuff. I used to read and study a lot, and I thought at some point I want to see how it's like to live this life away from this world, from this noise, and yeah. So I went with a few other girls. I went to convent in place called Nowy Sącz, near Krakow, and spent there about 5 days to learn how the life away from the world to serve people and God look like. And this when I had time to reflect, to pray, to actually find out who we like. After that, I still had my faith deep, but I didn't want to be And then my faith was really strong. And I thought I might be useful in different ways. Then I didn't know yet what I might do, what my life might look like. So to be close to my faith, to all this what was happening in my country, the same as many other young people. I love to do pilgrimage, and I've done few pilgrimage from Krakow, a place called Częstochowa, where is the famous painting of Black Madonna. And we was walking about 5 days, all day long, from 6 o'clock in the morning till 7 in the evening, with few breaks for lunch or your needs met, like toilet and freshen. And I remember for walking the 5 days, I was picking up stones on the way from Krakow to Częstochowa. And my colleague asked me, "What are you doing? You got your rucksack, you got your tent. Why are you picking the stones? And you got more and more, and the bag is so heavy." And I said, I'm picking the stones because it's like, I think for me, each stone symbolizes one thing I wanna offer when I arrive at the shrine of Black Madonna. And I don't remember how many stones I carried. That was quite heavy, and that was quite symbolic for me, because whatever trouble I had in my heart, in my head, I put into the bag and I carried, and basically that was my gift. I left all the heavy stones back there on the stairs of the shrine.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I remember that story, and it's such a deliberate expression of your faith and of your conviction towards Christ, and yeah, really beautiful. How long is the distance between Krakow and the shrine?
I think it's about 250 kilometers.
Okay. Yeah. So no easy feat at all. And on top of that, the weight of your bag was just getting heavier and heavier. Yeah, very symbolic, and yeah, a really powerful story, very humbling story. And thank you for sharing that. And I know that your spiritual life remains and has always remained. Your faith has always remained. It's been tested for sure at many times throughout your life, and yet you've remained resolute in your commitment to Christ. And it's to the world's benefit, and to our family's benefit, and to me, that you didn't join a convent. Obviously, God had different plans for you. But yeah, a very powerful and moving story. So I think that tell me what was going on then after this. So obviously you finished your studies, you returned home, and from my understanding in the Polish culture, um, daughters and sons are kind of matched and married off quite early. And so families are having discussions. There's kind of conversations, and it was a time where it was kind of seen as perhaps not the thing to do, to not be married or to not have somebody to marry. And I suppose plans were underway for you. So tell me from there.
Yeah, after finishing my study, I returned to my family home. It was summer holiday, and in the meantime, I was looking for a job in my profession, and find a job again away from family home, halfway between Zamość and Krakow. That was place called Kielce, and it was when I was working, and I was trying to establish my life, I guess. But again, I was returning home, from time to time every month, maybe for Christmas. In May, my mom was very unwell. She had infection in her joints, so basically she was unable to move her arms. She couldn't do basic stuff. So when I returned to support her, she was getting that well on time. And then when I doing shopping in my local shop, I met a boy who I really fell in love. I think that was my first love. And we was dating for about 12 months. But my parents, mainly my dad, he didn't like this person. And my dad did everything what he could to not make nothing else happen. I want to talk about the details, but basically everything ended after 12 months. And then I've been told by my dad that I'm not over 90 years old. I should think about marriage, because my colleagues, they was already married, they have husband and children. I'm only one who has no husband, no boyfriend, so he didn't accept my first boyfriend. Next minute, I'm getting married to a person I didn't choose. So it's very short period of time. So breakup of my first relationship, very serious. To my first marriage, it's only 3 months time. I was married in September 1990. Yeah, very quickly I became pregnant. And my marriage, which lasted 12 years, that was only one, I would say, it's like a series of many episodes that happened on the way. The abuse, violence, basically started from the very beginning. It was really, really difficult time, because being married in Poland in a Catholic church, you not only married a person, you married church, you married the family, you married the society you live in. And whatever has happened in your marriage, you're not meant to bring to the light or talking about what happening outside of your house door, neighbors, family, violence, abuse. And this particular culture that I live in this place was acceptable, and mainly woman was blamed. If something was not going right in the marriage, woman was to blame. Like to anything. And I remember sharing something to my mother-in-law, and I said, I can't carry like this. I can't breathe. I can't be free. It's something it suffocates me. And she said to me, my daughter, she said, daughter, you're gonna be okay. I manage, and you will. And that was her support. And obviously growing up in this culture and living in this culture, thinking about the holy marriage, I took everything inside and I thought, I'm not gonna talk about this. Yeah, it's happened to any older woman. It happened to me. It's how it is. They're my cross. These are my cross. But the violence, it was severe, more severe each year. I had children very often, every 2 years. So in 2002, not 2000, in the millennium year, I was 29 years of age and I had 4 children in age of 9, 7, 4, and just born. And obviously, living in this trauma behind closed doors, in isolation, I had no one to share this story because I tried, and when I tried to talk to someone, everybody was saying this is normal, or if neighbor called the police, and police arrived, and they was asking me, so what did you do to upset him so badly? That was the response of the police who was called to attend the domestic incident in our home. So in the end, I stopped basically asking for help. To the point when the youngest child was 2 years old, and my ex-husband was I don't know how to describe. He was addicted to alcohol. There was hardly any days he was sober. He developed all illnesses from epilepsy from alcohol to schizophrenia. And basically, he was a very sick man. He had an accident when he basically walked before the traffic car, and he was badly injured. So lots of operation, many months at the hospital, and there was me and 4 children trying to survive after each other. And then I remember after 6 months of working hard, taking extra hours of job to pay for the private treatment to stabilize him so he can stand up from the wheelchair and learn how to walk. He managed to walk again. The first thing what he did after 6 months was he went to a local shop and get drunk. And when he came back home, he started to be violent. He injured our eldest son, Martin, and he basically shot my body against the wall. I lost conscious. And when I woke up, I was in an intensive care. And then the doctors of intensive care, they called police. And basically then, that was the time when my therapy started. It was the time when the violence stopped. I decided that I don't want this life anymore. I believe that without people who actually acknowledge what was going on, that these injuries never happen because of my action. I'm really grateful to this doctor who actually calls the police and reported domestic abuse. Obviously, after that I had great support from my siblings, from my sister, from my brother, my parents, neighbors. But until then, no one knew what was happening. But going back to my faith, many people ask me, why didn't you not leave? Just leave, take your children and go. I couldn't. First of all, because I was aware of my what I said before the altar to my husband. I was aware of all this, how important, how sacred the marriage is, that is indissoluble. I believe that was my cross. But after, to the whole 12 years, when I experienced the horrendous episode of being almost hung by my husband on the rock, to threaten to take my life with my children looking at this, like, witnessing everything. I was always thinking, gosh, when is gonna end? I didn't have much strength. I wasn't very well, and I wanted to end everything. At the dinner, I kissed my children at night and waited when they slept. And I wanted to open the gas and end everything. I don't know what stopped me, but I suddenly remembered the prayer I used to pray in a convent. And I started praying, and this thought gone away. And I said I remember in my prayer, I said to God, it's in your power, it's in your mercy to help me. And I know that whatever is ahead of me, there must be something better than what is right now. Please help me. And then, when obviously there was a separation between me and my husband, I filed for divorce. And then I was focusing on supporting myself and for children. I was taking different jobs to meet all the needs of the bills. I was renting 2 bedroom flats. Didn't have any support, any security, had welfare benefits from the government. So basically, whatever I earned, I was able to support myself. And then, when I was on my own with the children, I felt really, really happy, really peaceful. All my energy will come back, all my, I would say, creativity. And I started believing in myself again after all this time. And I never remember, like, one day, I heard a knock into my door. And when I opened the door, there was 2 people, a smart couple, in their late 60s, and they actually knocked to ask me how I'm doing. How your children doing? We know you're on your own. Would you mind to come and talk about anything about Bible? And there was basically Jehovah's Witnesses who, in a way of kindness, they just maybe help from someone that is a single mother with 4 children who might be struggling. And when I'm looking back now, and I'm thinking that was the best time, the best moment for me to reflect on my life, because when I finally become free from my marriage, as a young woman, or I was 31, I could lose myself. Like when you're older woman, looking for new relationship, maybe going party, drinking, alcohol, everything was available. But the time when people knocked into my door, it came with something that grounded me and helped me to focus what is important in my life, like myself, my children, and that was coming quite regularly, like every week. I remember Tuesday afternoon after school, the teacher used to come from school, we had dinner, and then these two people was coming, and was basically reading a Bible, and was talking about all these wonderful messages that been shared by Jesus. And I think this gives me even more strength, because from that day, I was always looking to the future, knowing that someone is looking over me. Someone there doesn't want me to suffer. Someone there wants me to deepen my faith and basically do my best to support my children and myself, and not to get how to say, not to disappear in this crowd of people who no longer value what is important from the family, from themselves.
It's a really kind of grounding experience, something amidst all of the kind of other really painful things that happened, and I appreciate. It's still so difficult for me to witness what you went through, and I know that you want to spare perhaps listeners, our children, family, people we know. But I think you touched on things lightly, and as horrendous as everything that you just said is, and it's painful, and it's just sad, and heartbreaking as it is. There was so much more that you had to endure, so much more that you were so alone with. The violence, the sexual violence, the isolation, the hopelessness, the aloneness. And I know you've shared your story with me, and as your husband, as your friend. It's still heartbreaking. So I know you're not a Jehovah's Witness, but God bless those Jehovah's Witnesses that came to see you. And I understand that you picked up some very mixed messages from the Catholic Church. So the Catholic Church is obviously, it's been a force for good, continues to be a force for good throughout the world, and in Poland specifically. And you were high, as you spoke about, you'd been highly active in your earlier religious pilgrimages. But tell me, about some of the dysfunction, the double standards, and the mixed messages that you were subjected to from the Catholic Church.
Mm. Yeah. So you can only imagine that you're not meant to be divorce in the Catholic marriage is for life. So the moment I managed to get the divorce, that was very long process, about 3 years. It was really, really dramatic times for my children, our children, because the family court needed to find out about the parental responsibility and to whom they gonna give the children. And obviously, having all the evidence what I experienced, I applied for divorce from the family court to actually find out on which part was the fault. And myself, so the children need to go through special assessment by children psychologists, educational practitioners to find out about the emotional relation between children and mother and children and father. So it was horrendous process, but finally after 2 years, it was granted in the favor of our children that the parental responsibility is given fully mother, and the place of the children should live is always with the mother. So that was a really, really positive outcome. But then soon after, I had a divorce in place. Obviously, children was going to Catholic school. The whole community knew that I'm divorced, and my children are from so-called broken family, because in our society is better for children that they have both parents, despite the parents not always well behaving, but it's full family. So once they knew that my children don't have a father, I've been told that I'm not allowed to basically receive communion. And I would expect different approach from the Catholic Church, from my parish. So once we learn that there's a family, not a family in Colin, that is children don't have a father, and maybe there will be a ways to support this family. Somehow, I never received the support from the parish, from the priests. Yeah, I can imagine they must see us as the family of the second generation, like, I don't know, worse, because it's not full family.
Yeah. And just, I mean, me and you believe that children, the best place for children are in are with a full family picture, but a well-ordered family, a family that doesn't have the type of abuse and dysfunction and violence and abandonment where the father is present and contributing and isn't violent and isn't abusive and isn't controlling and supports the whole family picture, takes his responsibilities with dignity, and upholds those. And so again, here you are abandoned effectively by the Catholic Church. You don't have a husband, you're working several jobs. And I don't think, again, we really highlighted how far you walked, how long you had to work, how hard you worked, and for how little money. I mean, I think between all of your jobs, you were lucky to be taking home probably a third to 25% of what people in the UK on the basic minimum wage were taking home. And you were supporting 4 children. You were trying to support yourself, of which I know you always came last. And I don't think that you had never ever picked up that you resented that. You were always the first person to put your children first, and you never thought of yourself. And in fact, that's something that you have still struggled to do. I mean, anybody who knows you, who's met you, and who's experienced you for longer than 5 minutes, knows how special a person you really are. And I'm not just saying that as your husband, I'm saying that obviously, subjectively, but also objectively. It's an incredible story, which is not a story, it's your life. It's an incredible struggle. And for somebody who has had so many struggles and didn't turn to selling your body, you didn't turn to addiction, you didn't turn to alcoholism, you didn't turn to anything, and you clung to Christ, you clung to your children. And despite these, and for people who are not Catholics, the Eucharist is Christ. It's transubstantiation. It's Christ in the Eucharist. We are receiving Christ, the body of Christ. And for any Catholic that's cut off from that, you may as well take everything. So, and to be fair, you visited the sacraments regularly, you went to church regularly, you confessed, and so there was no reason for you, because you were effectively renewed and in a state of grace. And this is again just a deep wound that I feel that the Catholic Church at that time, kind of mired in its own dysfunction and its own kind of, let's say, bending towards the kind of the culture within Poland. And I mean, do you think that this was just something that was reflective of kind of deeper dysfunction within parts, and I don't say, I say parts of the Polish culture around family beliefs and family systems, that because of it being deeply rooted in Catholic beliefs, marriage is inseparable, it's till death, and it is a cross that we bear. Marriage is a cross. And but not for people like you, and there are others who've felt the very thorny side of that cross, a weight far too heavy and far too unjust for one person. And so I'd like to think that our Catholic Church has changed. I'd like to think that this doesn't go on today, or at least isn't as present as it once was. And I pray for the continued conversion of the Catholic Church and it turning towards Christ and our original mission, which is to get all of us to heaven, and to support us spiritually whilst we're here, to provide the sacraments to which they had cut you off, and I feel very unjustly. And I know that you've got a lot to say. I know that there's a lot of kind of activism that goes on within APOLCA, and we can kind of get to that. But I also want to say that there are very many examples, far outweighing the examples that you've given, of Polish men and women who are just such amazing characters. And I think it's also important to kind of give a balanced view, but it's also important not to do so in a way that undermines the struggle of women and children, even today, even in the service that you provide in the UK, that are caught up in this dysfunction, caught up in this isolation and abuse. And you have obviously set up this very unique service, which we can get into a little bit later. So we're kind of moving on through a time of great pain, great suffering, just that deep hopelessness, and the moving of the Holy Spirit in your life as well. I really feel that there's something that's kind of pulling, just as identifying my own life. There was those moments when I wanted to end all of it, just to make the pain and just the darkness to go. And yeah, here I am, here you are. So you came to the UK. Why did you come to the UK?
Yeah. Well, my intention was to visit UK when my sister lived with her husband. And I asked my sister to find me a cleaning job just for a few weeks for summer holiday, so I can earn my budget. I wanted to earn some money to, when I go back in September, to buy all for my children shoes and clothes and books and all of this gadget for new school. Because in Poland we buy everything. It's not nothing is basically free. On top of that, you have to pay insurance and membership. So it's a lot of money for sending for children to school. Was about 2 months of my wages, which I didn't have. So my sister, she said, okay, come at the beginning of August, I will find you something. So I arrived in Bristol on the 4th of August 2005. And that was, I believe, Thursday or Friday. And on Monday, I already had a job to go at the building site to clean the, everything was new, developed, so clean the bathrooms, kitchen. I was so happy. And that was my first job. Soon after, she found me another job in as a kitchen porter. So I was cleaning dishes. And I remember at the end of month, I received payslip. Also, she found me a job in a very prestigious hotel called Hotel Divine. And I had to learn very quickly some words in English. And I was a waitress and serving staff. So at the end of the August, I received my first payslip. And from the other jobs, I worked out that I made in 1 month, I made 6 months my salary in Poland. And that was the time when I realized the opportunity. And I said to my sister, you know what, I meant to go back, each time. I'm not coming back. I'm not coming back.
So that was obviously a bit of a culture shock, just kind of that realization. Yeah. So what was it like? Your first experience, you've come into the UK, it's a completely different country. Of course, it's a stark contrast from Eastern Europe. In what ways did it differ in terms of kind of family life, social life from what you had known?
Right, obviously, what I've noticed, and it's always gonna stick with me. The minute I left my travel coach, and all these different smells of the restaurant that was there, kebab and pizza and pasta and like all this wonderful experience. And I used to ask them, I said, what's that? And obviously she was saying different restaurant, different culture. And obviously I was meeting on the street, I was meeting people from different countries, and that was so exotic for me. And yeah, everybody was speaking different language, and but apart from that, there was so much kindness and what is the word when everybody accepts you. It was like, oh, you're from Poland. No, nothing like that. Everybody was so kind and trying to be respectful and supportive. I think that my experience when I arrived in UK was the best experience I ever had. Meeting new people. That was wonderful. And obviously, I was aware that I'm not gonna see my children, my family for a very long time. So we was keeping very close circle of people we knew in the Polish community. Obviously, we live in an area where there's Polish church, and there was a wonderful priest, Zygmunt Prączak. And when my sister and I went to the mass, was only 5 of us, 5 Polish women. When I'm going to Polish church now, it's hundreds, maybe thousand. I actually know the exact number, but this is the difference from then to now. Yeah,